If you are a record collector, you are likely familiar with Discogs. Use it on your computer, it's an app on your phone. But who are the people behind it? I recently had the opportunity to sit down with Kevin and Lloyd, CEO and COO of Discogs, to talk about the status of the company, what they're doing to improve the buyer and seller experiences, and the future of the vinyl industry on the debut episode of the Discogs Insider.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl. Glad to join us for the debut episode of what we are calling the Discogs Insider, and what better way to kick it off with the CEO and the COO of Discogs, Kevin and Lloyd. Thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, G.I. Great to be here.
Dallas-Fort Worth area, familiar at all other than the airport?
Not much other than the airport,
okay.
Yeah.
First time in Dallas. First time in Dallas, well, that's cool. So we are actually a little north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Denton, Texas. We're in an amazing location called the Vinyl Lounge, which is obviously a vinyl-themed bar. Denton is known for primarily the University of North Texas, which is a very music-centric university. So perfect setting for us to be here to talk music, to talk Discogs, and to get into the nitty-gritty of the Discogs Insider. So I'm kind of envisioning this as something to where we can kind of pull back the curtains a little bit. Everybody, including myself, has the Discogs app. If you're a record collector, use it on a daily basis, maybe an hourly basis. And there's people behind that app, and that's you guys at the very top, as well as, a lot of employees as a company that's been around for nearly 25 years. So I'm very excited to kind of dig into the history of the company, which will be fun because I know there's a story there, but also the evolution. And most importantly, I think for a lot of people, it's kind of the future of where things are going from you guys' standpoint, where Discogs fits in. So I'm very excited about that. So the first thing I wanted to mention, which we didn't want to talk about off camera because I wanted to hear, is kind of the idea for where this came from. Obviously, I'm a huge record collector and use Discogs all the time, just like any other collector. And I have a good friend of mine, when we were brainstorming video ideas for the NTX Vinyl YouTube channel, off the cuff, he's like, why don't you just interview the CEO? And I'm like, oh, that's really easy. And that was about a year ago. And I had a contact at Discogs because I'm a seller on Discogs for NTX Vinyl. And I had hit him up a year later. Sometimes things just pan out. And now we're sitting together in Denton, Texas at the Vinyl Lounge having a chat. So I do want to obviously touch on the history. And we were just discussing this. The year 2000 is when you founded Discogs, or I should say the idea of Discogs. So tell me about that initial vision, if there was any.
Yeah,
where?
It came out of a lot of discussion on internet mailing lists about music. I was a amateur DJ collecting house techno and drum and bass records, so I was active on these mailing lists, talking to other people. They had often talked about the idea of a IMDb for music.
Yeah.
Or like, wouldn't it be great if we could build this database of music? And there were other, like open source software projects was a new thing, and there's another thing called Open Directory Project, which was a user-built list of links, so people could see that communities were forming, collecting data, and building a...
2000 was a very different time on the internet.
Yeah.
Versus what we know now.
Way less people on the internet and way less regulations as well.
Yeah, sure.
So I was active on those mailing lists. Discogs wasn't really my idea. People were talking about it. There was a group of people trying to create a project, but it never got off the ground. And I spent about 6 months of my own time coding, nights and weekends, putting together a simple prototype that worked. It was really crude compared to what it is today, but it was like really basic, but it worked. And I could add my own records, and then
So it was really all about catalog.
It was catalog, 100%. Yeah, there were no album covers, collection or want list, reviews, nothing like that. It was just type in the data and it makes an organized list. That was it.
And so the crazy part to me is the year 2000 is essentially when digital music is beginning to take hold in a big way. And you decide to start a company around cataloging physical media, which is the craziest thing to me. So at what point did it turn from a little idea to an actual like, oh, okay, this is gonna be a company and I'm gonna be the CEO?
I guess that was like a slow a slow transition over like 10 years. I mean, that kind of happened, well, I mean, maybe 2010, but so it was a hobby for me. I was a software developer at Intel. Before that, I worked there 5 years. And I was doing Discogs for fun on nights and weekends. It was thrilling. I was having so much fun. Had close contact with users, getting ideas. I was really active in the forums. They were giving good ideas. I was building them. And this thing just kept getting bigger and bigger, gaining momentum.
So a true organic, like, no, tell me the truth. Was there a business plan?
No.
There never is. The companies that work, there's never a business plan. It's passion. It's just because you were chasing it, because you're a record collector and you're like, I want to catalog this stuff. Most of the time it's because you want it for yourself.
Yeah, in a way it was. It was for me. I mean, I knew other people would want it because they were similar to me. We were all talking about the same thing online, but it was just, I guess, my personal desire. Like if this cool database was out there, then I could learn about all the records that I wanted and find a way to buy them.
Crowdsourced element.
And there was no marketplace at that time. So
sure.
I rewind a little bit. I quit Intel. I took a voluntary severance package and took some money to quit. And that was the perfect time to work.
That was the seed money, huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, the closest thing to a business plan was at that point, I had a couple ideas of what I could do. I experimented with a subscription service, had affiliate links, had advertising. Our users had asked for the marketplace because we had collection, want list, and they asked
because everyone's looking at everyone's collections going, hey, will you sell that to me? And you're like, wait a second.
And there were funny hacks people were making. I remember this account called Everything in This Collection is for Sale. And
that was their username?
That was the username. And in the profile, they had a coding system like 5 out of 5 equals $10, 4 out of 5 equals $8. So somebody had made their own marketplace on this.
There you go.
Yeah, and so people wanted to sell list. And so I sat down, started thinking, designing, built a basic marketplace. And it actually had to go through a second iteration, but that happened in 2005. And yeah.
So the initial vision is typically in a company, especially in a startup company, it's like, what's the problem you're solving? And the problem that you solved was just how to efficiently catalog your collection, right? I mean, initially in the earliest stages?
I guess, I mean, even before cataloging, it was just like, we need a definitive catalog of all the music.
A definitive catalog, and then boils down to what you actually own.
Right, right.
So the end-all, be-all encyclopedia of physical media, essentially, right?
Right.
And electronic music. So where our intersections happen are around 2004. So I'm building out Beatport, and this is Beatport's an online music store, download store for electronic dance music DJs. Okay. And so we're coming out in 2004, and there are no distributors at the time. Okay. And so the labels are sending us their masters on like CDs. They're writing the metadata down on Post-it notes and putting it in Excel sheets. And so we actually had a Discogs workstation set up next to the encoding, because also there was no fiber optics, there was no AWS, right? They're encoding the music over here, and we were entering into Discogs as well as pulling the information off. And that's when I first was introduced to.
Gotcha. So even though you've only been at Discogs a year, you said you guys have been connected for a long time in the industry. Yeah, that's great. Well, that I mean, it's pretty telling for a company that's going to be celebrating the 25th anniversary, that you've got people who've founded the company, you've known each other long, but most importantly, that are music fans and collectors themselves. Like, I think that's the biggest thing for me. You pop open your phone, you use all these apps, and they're nameless and they're faceless, and you forget that. So I think in a lot of ways, me getting to sit down with you guys now, when I go to open up that app every day, I'm thinking like, I want to, I mean, at a high level, obviously you guys are involved in all this stuff. So that's really, really cool. So the company's founded around the idea of a master database for physical media. Mm-hmm. And that market has changed a lot, especially in the last couple of years. Again, you founded it at a time when physical media was probably at its lowest as far as consumption. In the year 2000, and otherwise known as like the dark days of vinyl, right? CDs have taken over. Pressing plants are barely paying attention to vinyl anymore. And then you got the whole digital music revolution. But in the past 5 years, and especially the last 2 or 3 years, the market has changed a ton. An interesting conversation for me that I wanted to have with you guys is where you see Discogs fitting in today's market, but not only from a buy-sell standpoint, but also from a culture standpoint.
Mm-hmm. We think about that in terms of the collector's journey.
Yeah.
The original mission of Discogs was building the definitive database of electronic music. And we achieved that after a couple of years. Then we expanded the mission and vision. Yeah. So today it's a broad statement, but it's also focused. So we're talking about it in terms of the collector's journey. So we see Discogs as a way to help people wherever they're at in their collecting journey. If you have a small collection, maybe you want to grow that or just learn more about it or discover something new, Discogs is a way to help you with that. Maybe if you get as big as opening a record store, Discogs is also.
The educational component to what you guys provide, it's, you can't put a number on it. Like, I have so many people who obviously come to me, or I see it, hearsay, questions about whether or not how to use it. But then I'll often get, or I'll often see questions of like, oh, I bought this album off Discogs. Or I bought this album from Discogs. I'm like, Discogs doesn't sell records. There's, so you've always got to like kind of fix that. And I always spin it around. I was like, you realize that without this database, you are really, really going to struggle to figure out a lot of this information. When you get into the minutia of different types of pressings, different types of albums and all those things. So again, the educational aspect of the problem you guys have solved with that is just so important.
Well, and it's really the problem the community has solved. So when we look at this, we have just shy of 1 million people who have contributed their time and energy into the facts and information that are in that database. So, everything that we're doing
17 million releases.
17 million releases across 1 million people, 1 million products going up a year. And it's really the community. That's what separates us.
Yeah.
Right? From other transactional platforms, we're always thinking about the community. A quick anecdote, when Kevin was hiring me away from where I was, and I was at Vinyl Me Please, and he's telling me on the phone, and I can't believe I'm hearing this, right? He's just like, hey, I don't want a COO who's going to come in here and just try and drive profit and growth. I want someone who's going to come in here and fix it. They said no CEO ever. And I get off the phone, I was like, Annie, I tell my wife, I'm like, I got to do this. Like, I have to do this, because to be in a situation where it's not about that, and it's about the community, it's about the growth, and we get to go fix these things.
And that's the secret sauce. I mean, it really is. It's all of the collectors, ourselves included, who are fueling this thing, but at the same time, we're fueling it, but then we're benefiting from it. I mean, I can't run my business without Discogs. I know every other record store can't run their business without Discogs. Not only from the standpoint of like seeing what things are buying and selling for. The transactional part, it's great, but again, it's the educational standpoint. I mean, I cannot overstate the importance of how much I've learned about this hobby because of what you guys have built. And I know every other collector's in the same boat.
Yeah, the heart of this is the database of discographies that almost 1 million people have worked together to build, and is really accurate. We hear from other labels and associations all the time that our database is more accurate than theirs.
Yeah, we're in meetings with high-ups at major labels telling us everybody's got Discogs open all day long because that database is more accurate than our own.
The community and the cultural impact, again, is so important. And I do want to touch on as well, because I talked about digital a little bit, because again, going back to when you founded the company, I'm curious you guys' point of view. I talk about this all the time because when I started NTX Vinyl, which was 5 years ago, and now I'm still doing it, and people ask me all the time, do you think records are going to continue to be a thing? And I tell people all the time, my opinion is like, well, they're never going to be a mainstream thing again. A small, let's say 10%, 15% niche of a multi-billion-dollar market, like you can build a great business around that. You know what I mean? Because it's a multi-billion-dollar market. So I'm curious, like, what's you guys' point of view there? Because I'm sure you get asked the same thing. When you tell people you work in an industry and it's around physical media and primarily around records, I'm sure you get a lot of the same questions, huh?
What I would say is we've got one part of the business is this, we get all this data around sonic archaeology, right? Where we're actually taking all of this music that's been released over the years and put it in the database. But what we're talking about now, sonic anthropology. Okay. And so we see things in the data about how the demographic is shifting, for example. And so you've got, Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey all putting out these huge records.
Yeah.
That's creating fandom. Yeah. And that fandom is coming from a larger growth in the younger generation. My daughter, who's 13, is going to record stores now, buying records on her own. Her friends are getting her records for her birthday.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. And so we're seeing this potential emerging market of young record collectors who have this appreciation for the physical format, even though there's a canister in everyone's home with every song they could ever want to listen to. They still appreciate the music and have that affinity for the artist and want to be closer.
It's no different than a kid walking into a record store in 1975 and seeing a Pink Floyd cover and be like, oh, that is so cool looking, what is that? That same experience is happening right now in Targets and Walmarts and in independent record stores.
Absolutely.
All over the world. And it's amazing that this many years longer, that same experience can still happen.
I think there's something really human about that. And as we've pushed into, AI and bots and social media, and it's like I think about the streaming services. I had my year-end Wrapped, right? And it's like, this is what you listen to. This isn't what I listen to. This is what you served me.
Yeah.
Right? And so I got served that music. It isn't what I listen to. You got to look at my turntable to know what I listen to. And so we're seeing that, and then we're seeing this other group in 60 plus growing too.
Oh yeah.
And
Nostalgia.
When we were at the Haarlem Vinyl Festival outside of Amsterdam this year, the first one, they had set up the vinyl market just off of the main city center, down a street, literally translated in Dutch to Crooked Elbow, and it was families. You had grandparents with kids. I have a picture of a kid with a Discogs bag. He had to have been like 8 years old with records in it with grandpa. And they're just going through and buying. And so I think there's this connection of folks who had records and maybe gave them away, didn't think and they're watching a way to connect with the younger generation again. And so they're both buying and they're going to the store together. And I think that's just a really, really cool and very human thing. And so when I look at how things are shifting, I can't see that going away. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what would possibly replace physical music and have that type of a
the importance of it, and I say this all the time, is basically Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg, as a blanket statement, have sucked everything into our phone. And so now everything's in our phone and it's in our pocket. And so now there's this whole resurgence of appreciation for the things that are real again. And especially from that younger generation who have grown up and all of it's been in their phone. Because they never knew a paper map. They never knew a telephone that you picked up in the kitchen that was on a cord. All these things are gone. They don't need a camera. All those things are gone. So now to see a physical piece of record, it's always been magic, and it will forever be magic, but especially to a kid.
Oh yeah, I actually have a good group of 8-year-olds, and I went to their class and I was teaching them about how vinyl works, and we had vinyl pellets and pucks and everything, and we did the whole thing where you create a paper cone and you create your own little needle and you spin it through, and their minds are blown, right? They're used to installing a new thing or changing some lines of code. That's innovation. No, that was innovation.
Yeah.
The idea of pressing onto wax, sound waves, right? And it's still here today.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So with the evolution of collecting, especially over the last couple of years, now that we've seen this resurgence, let's talk about future state a little bit, about what you guys have been doing recently, and where things are kind of headed.
Yeah, so our primary focus over the last year or so has been on revisiting our tech and rebuilding things. It had grown into a very complicated system, difficult to manage.
Well, it was built, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And for people who aren't in the technology space, that may as well have been 250 years ago as far as how fast things have changed. So
yeah, it was built before web frameworks were a thing, before you could buy third-party components for like login and checkout and things. So we had to do everything. Everything was hand-built back then. So it ended up in a spaghetti ball, which is a normal thing for technology companies. But that's what we had, and we're we're working through it, and we're really excited about the cool things we're going to be able to do after that.
Well, and the sheer volume of the data you guys are dealing with, which is obviously of massive value, but it's got to be a massive headache. At the same time, you got to figure out that balance, you know?
Problems to solve, right? And Kevin and I talk about this when he had 1,300 people that he was listening to on the platform. Now we have millions of people that were listening to the platform. So everything has to shift from the way that we listen to our customers, how transparent we are with them, and how you tell this, like how you tell the story to everyone.
When you say customers, I'm actually curious, like who do you think of? Are you thinking of the seller or the buyer?
Everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And contributors.
And contributors.
Yeah.
That's a problem most companies don't have. Most companies have a customer profile and it's like in this person. So you guys have multiple problems to solve for the different customers.
Yeah, I mean, contributors is a very, is a smaller group, very focused on doing one thing. Buyers, sellers, collectors. I guess collectors and buyers are probably in the same group. But I wanted to mention, like in the early days, I think something that made Discogs successful is that I was in the forums, had close contact with the users, hands-on. They were given ideas, I was implementing them really quick, and that made it work and made it successful, but it also made the underlying code base pretty messy.
Well, yeah, because you're scrappy. You're just moving fast.
Yeah,
and you're
that's
a small operation.
Yeah,
totally.
I literally said yes to everything.
Why not at that stage? Yeah.
Yeah, and we can't do that anymore.
No,
And,
yeah.
I can't be in every forum thread. Can't answer every email anymore.
How many employees at Discogs approximately?
Around 110.
110 employees. Okay. So do you still consider yourself a startup? Are you like a grown-up startup? What's the culture like inside the company? Because I've been in startups and
Yeah, it's very collaborative, and everyone is very helpful and on board with the company mission, like helping music fans, collector's journey.
I've got to imagine there's a large majority of people who work for you and with you guys that also have collections.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's got to be
Like everyone.
like everyone, right? Like and that's the same thing. Like if you work in this industry, whether you're on the tech side, whether you're on the retail side, whether you own a label, you work at a pressing plant, all of those people collect records. They collect records, and the reason why they have those jobs is A, because they need to pay their bills, but B, because they want to do something they want to touch something in some form that's connected to something they love. Like that's why I'm in this industry. That's why you guys are in this industry.
Yeah.
So that's really, really important. So that's awesome to hear that, of 110 employees, like tons of them are in it because, they get to work with something they love.
The culture that Kevin has cultivated here is actually quite special. Having been at a number of startups and music companies, I haven't seen anything quite like it as I've joined, and I've said this quite a bit, where you have the businesses that have like some goal to hit multiples and drive some revenue growth, and they push that down into the organization, and you end up treating everyone there like cogs in a wheel, and they're replaceable. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. That works for VCs and private equity. Yeah. Here, what we have is a better understanding of the community we're all a part of. The employees are also part of that community. And so there's this noble sense of stewardship that happens that requires us to really understand even the employees, what motivates them, what are their passion.
Yeah.
And we're really the roadmap that we're pushing is driven through that. And Kevin has the really hard job of listening to all those people and turning it into something.
Well, yeah, community is an amazing thing to be able to harness these days, whether it's internally or obviously externally, more to the broader Discogs base, and even into like the retail world, to where I've seen so much value for the business I've built.
Yeah.
By building community around it. Like there's a lot of places to buy records.
Yeah.
And in most cases, it's all the same records. You can go anywhere. You can go to Discogs and buy them from thousands of different sellers, or you can go into retail stores, that type of thing. But what extra value are you providing? And these days, people find so much appreciation in the community aspect because it gives you a little sense of belonging, whether even if it's a really small thing where you're choosing to click buy or whatever, but bringing that community element is huge for culture internally and I think and externally.
Yeah, I think it's been huge for Discogs. We have a community, and they feel like they've created Discogs in a way. I mean, everyone, some people have contributed a lot, some people a little, but like everyone has come together on this shared mission to create this really accurate database of all music in the world. And I want that to be preserved forever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, imagine what it's going to be like 300 years from now when none of us are here today. But I want Discogs to be around then. Yeah, so that's one of the things we're really focused on.
Absolutely. So to that point, you guys recently have talked about a lot of technical debt that you're solving for, that spaghetti that you talked about. So I know that's in development. What's kind of the update there as far as users starting to see some things on the front end? Because that's the hard part. So much of technical debt is stuff underlying that no one's going to see. But from a user standpoint, if you're watching this and you're a regular viewer of Discogs as far as using it to buy or using it to sell, like when in 2024 are things going to start to show up a little bit?
We do have some updates to the want list and want list notifications coming later in the year.
And that's a big feature for a lot.
That's a big feature, yeah. And we have some updates to the label page as well, where you'll be able to sort it and drill down by certain criteria, the roles.
Or usability to find what you're looking for, essentially, which is huge.
Yeah, some of the label pages are huge, and yeah, I mean, you could go page by page through 100 pages, but we're going to have new ways to drill down into that information.
Yeah, that's great. And then a couple other items that I know are top of mind for you guys. Tell me a little bit about the community. Speaking of community advisory board, what is that, and how can people watching this video expect that to impact them as collectors?
Yeah, so that, I mean, connected to what we were talking about before about participating in the forums and gathering feedback. This is a new way that we're gonna use to get various members of the community out there to create this advisory board and give us direct feedback. Ideally, we get great ideas. We'll learn what's most important, what are people's biggest worries, and they can help us give some direction to Discogs.
No, that makes perfect sense. So it's pretty much, the audience is so large at this point that you can't listen to everybody anymore. Right, so it's about forming a group of people that will maybe soak up some of that. Yeah, I consider myself in that group, even if it's just exponentially, because I see and talk to so many collectors on a regular basis.
Right.
So we're going to launch, is it February? Yeah, so next month, we're going to start opening enrollment, and folks can apply. And think of it kind of like writing a college essay, and you can tell us why you think you can make an impact in this community, and that's really telling the community why you can make an impact in the community. And anyone that we're bringing in, we want to make sure they're there for the right reasons, and they are going to listen to everyone. Because in any of these situations, you'll have people who have a self-serving objective that they want to go after, and we want to avoid that as much as we can.
Yeah.
We're all human at the end of the day, I get it. But we're going to do that, and we're going to open it up across contributing, collecting, and selling. And so we want to plant individuals in each of those sectors to then process the information that's coming through and feed it back to us. We're also going to open up some ways for communication and collection of data, polls, surveys, so forth, that the people sitting in those advisory positions can then process and bring to us. Because as Kevin mentioned, it's, signal versus noise is one thing. And then the other one is with the modernization of the tech platform and, really the company getting to the next level, there will be a simplification of some things too. And so we've got to find the right ways to do that and navigate it across each sector so that we can get really good at serving those areas, because there's that complexity that was built in early on is typically what's generating the friction points that we see from our customers. So they're saying, hey, simplify, without saying that, because they don't appreciate how maybe it's functioning now. And through that simplification, we'll be able to really hit on, what they want to do with the app or what they want to do with the platform.
Well, and that's, again, talking about solving problems, is you guys are in this predicament to where you're providing a platform for, let's say, someone who started collecting records last month, and all they want to be able to do is just learn which albums this artist released. Like, very simple, you know, that type of thing. And then you've got the complete other side of the spectrum of people who are digging down into the dead wax and which pressings and which plant and all this. So you've got to solve for both of those customers. Not to mention, then there's the guys who are selling on Discogs. And you got a whole nother set of problems.
That's a big challenge. Like, there's so much information to a new user or a new collector. It's overwhelming.
Totally
amount of information. Like, I think one of the biggest challenges. Say you're new to collecting. You want to buy Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, on Discogs, like there's so much. Yeah,
9,000.
There's over 1,000.
Oh yeah.
There's over 1,000 different pressings. But and then quantity. I don't even know. But yeah, that's something we'd like to solve.
Well, no, it is. I'm in every freaking vinyl Facebook group known to man, I promise you. And it's a very common occurrence for someone brand new to go to Facebook or YouTube, because or Google maybe. Those are places people go when they want answers. And they will find any of the groups on Facebook as an example, and they'll say, hey, I've got a bunch of records. My mom just passed them down to me. I'd love to learn about them. Where do I go?
Yeah.
And inevitably, people start dropping, go to Discogs. And I'm just like, that person's gonna click on that link and download that app and have no idea where to begin. And that's not a fault of Discogs. That is a fault of the breadth of data.
Yeah.
Because then when they punch in Dark Side of the Moon, then they go wide-eyed and go, what do I do here? You know? And so again, different problems for different users is a hard thing.
And it's actually been good for Discogs because, I mean, the collectors care about what version they have. So it's been good for collectors, good for the buyers, and good for sellers, but it's also difficult for new users. So it's something we want to work on.
Yeah, we're looking at using some of the modern technology that's out there where you can take large amounts of data and get pretty close to what you think somebody is looking for in that moment. And we're going to start playing with some of that stuff later in the year.
Sure.
For sure. But we're looking at all those user journey challenges where it's like, hey, I'm coming in and this is really what I want. And without disrupting the experience that people have come to love, the rabbit holes they love going down, how do you bring that to the folks who are coming in that don't even know that exists and are just looking for their entry point? And there are ways to solve that. And that's all stuff that we really look forward to getting to once we get past this step at midway through the year, through finalizing our modernization.
You got to get your base in place before you start. Otherwise, you're just going to create more problems down the line.
Yeah, you're writing features in old code and you're having to rip it out later. Yeah, it'll just take.
It's like building a house on like soft ground that's already had foundation problems. It's like you're stupid to build there.
Yeah.
Until you fix the foundation.
We're ripping that Band-Aid off, and so it's causing some friction, right?
It has to.
Right.
Yeah. You know, if you're going to do it right, it should cause friction.
Yeah. But we'll get to the other side of it. We're confident.
Well, speaking of friction, one of the questions I want to ask, because if I don't, I'll get flamed for it, is I'm really curious about you guys' opinions, and without getting into the weeds of the technicalities, there's definitely not a resurgence, but an influx of instances on Discogs where there's sellers who are not real sellers. And it has created issues, I'm sure, on your end, on my end from a retail perspective, certainly. And then, of course, from the buyer's perspective. So how do you guys, I mean, it is relatively new, I think, as far as being broadly noticed. Internally, how do you guys approach this when you're getting these, I don't even know what you call them, fake sellers, bots, what?
Fraudsters. Let's just call them frauds.
There you go. So talk to me about it, the way you guys see it.
So I have a background in fraud mitigation. Every e-commerce platform I've worked for, we've dealt with it. It's really the advent of artificial intelligence and machine learning and the computing powers that you buy that has just made it bad for everyone. And if you look across the industry, you're seeing fraud mitigation startups in streaming even. I think Universal just put money down on one of them. And you're seeing panels pop about fraud. So it's not unique to us. But it did hit us pretty hard at last year. And we have invested significantly in implementing enterprise fraud mitigation tools to cut it down. It's a cat and mouse game.
Yeah. So because they're evolving as you're evolving.
Yeah. And so we don't want to put a target on our back or anything. And I can't disclose what we're doing because that'll only. But we take it very seriously, and we've put a lot of time and effort and investment in cutting it down, and we saw it too. yeah, it's a disappointment with modern technology. It's inevitable.
Like there's no way around it, because the minute they see opportunity and they see that you've got size and scale and that you're kind of the only player in the market, it's like, who else are they going to target?
Yeah.
You know? So
It's a good opportunity for people to target people and take advantage.
take advantage. Yeah. And it's very unfortunate, but it just comes with the territory. Again, as a market starts to boom, which is what's happened in the last couple of years. Like if you go back 5-7 years, like I don't see that happening because there wasn't enough movement in the market. But as now, vinyl has become more of even still it's niche, but it's more available and accepted that, oh, this is sticking around, then you're gonna have the bad apples come with it. You know?
Totally. And so one thing we do have is we have a weekly pulse meeting where we, the executive team and the directors, actually measure KPIs, and one of them is the fraud number. And so we're watching it weekly, and if we see it spike, we're on it immediately.
See, and that's the type of stuff that I want people to know.
Yeah.
You know, because it's important for them to know that if they get scammed, or if they go and they look at a record and they're like, there's no way this is real. You know, these sellers have zero feedback, zero ratings, and they've got this record that's half the price of all the others. Like, first of all, just be smart, you know?
Yeah.
But second of all, know that you guys care and you're doing what you can. It just takes time.
Yeah, and we also launched something we called internally in Vinyl We Trust campaign, where we're having things pop up in the welcome series for new customers and in the checkout experience, where we say, hey, look for the stars. And we're playing around with ways to educate.
Little modals pop up and say,
sometimes things get past us. You know, we can't, we're doing this at scale. We're a two-sided marketplace. So sometimes bad actors get on the system and we can't shut it down quickly enough.
Sure.
But it's also one of the reasons, PayPal right now for us is a good partner. I know we don't like paying the PayPal fee, but they do guarantee all of those transactions, which helps out in these situations. And so on that side, I think they have the right approach for this. And so my advice would be, if you get defrauded, follow it through and get your money back.
It's just how it rolls these days. It's like you said, it affects every commerce platform. It's every app on your phone.
My credit cards were stolen 3 times in the last 5 years. You know, gas stations, whatever.
Not isolated.
No.
We talk about it every day.
Yeah.
We've made a big reduction in the amount of fraudsters. We haven't cleared it 100%. It's going to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
But we are working on it.
Oh, you're going to be dealing with it forever.
Yeah, it's a new normal.
It is. It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. Talk to me a little bit. So that's kind of the big thing from the buyer side. Talk to me about the seller side. What does the evolution look like for a record store owner, or even just a reseller, in regards to using the Discogs platform? Like, how is it going to evolve? You guys are the industry leader as far as the database is concerned, and the industry leader as far as records being sold online. But how does that evolve over time?
Yeah, well, we're actually working on some improvements to that right now as well. The way sellers can manage their inventory.
Sure.
Later in the year, we're going to have some more efficient processes, better tools to do things faster.
Inventory management is the death of me. And every record store owner, or any
Anything get better.
Any retail owner of physical things. I mean, and so I imagine that's definitely a sticking point. Always trying to figure out how to improve that, make it more efficient, those types of things. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So one other thing I want to touch on is, and this kind of harkens back to another series on the NTX Vinyl channel, which is my Talking About Records series. Probably my most watched videos ever have to do with Discogs, which is awesome because, again, I use it daily, so I'm constantly thinking about it, and that's where videos come from. But if you guys were going to give tips to new collectors specifically, not people who've been using it for years, but if there's someone who just started collecting records recently and they're going to download the Discogs app, like, what's the first thing you would tell them to do if they've got a modest collection developing?
I'd say get in the habit of putting everything in your collection.
Amen.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to take some time, but
way less time than if you wait till you have thousands. Then you're screwed.
Then you're behind. And that's going to give you...
So catalog from day one. Pro tip from the CEO of Discogs.
It'll help prevent you from buying duplicates, which I've done a lot.
Everyone has.
You'll get an average value of your collection. It'll help you get recommendations for new stuff.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, I would start there.
So the tip I have is with my want list, right? And I think there's a tendency to just cram your want list full of everything. And certainly the marketing team's gonna hate me for saying this because we like those clicks, okay?
Sure.
But what I found is I've actually trimmed mine down to just the handful that I really want.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get the notifications, and Kevin intimated we're gonna have a pretty big improvement to that here pretty soon. When I get those notifications that are coming through, it's just far more meaningful. And I actually, just before getting on the plane here, bought a record that everyone was selling for $100 for 25 bucks, totally reputable source. And I'm like, I would not have seen and caught that if I was going through hundreds of items.
Yeah.
And so, maybe just kind of take the things you're trying to hunt down and trim it down a little and get really tight with that list. You'll find the things you want.
I love that tip, and that really plays into something that I try to live by, which is quality over quantity. And as you're a record collector and your collection grows, that becomes more and more important. So even I wish if I could go back in time to when I started really collecting, that'd be the number one thing I'd tell myself is don't just try and grab every record you like or you think you like. Grab the best pressing. Grab the one that has good reviews and that other people who've been listening to it for years already can stand behind. I wish that's something I would have done. And even if it costs you a little bit more, quality over quantity is very important. And that's what the one list feature will help you with if you keep it under control.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, and there's another one, and it actually answers the question of the other things that we're doing. So there's always, every company I go to, there's always, well, we got to wait on the technology. We got to wait on the technology. Well, I'm always the guy that's like, we don't always have to wait on the technology. There's a lot we can do. We're an industry that's very cool. And so if you're newly in, look for the sales that we're doing. This is a new thing.
I've seen that recently.
Trying out. And our goal is to turn this into something everybody could do, but we got to wait on the technology a little bit. But we wanted to push forward anyway and start to test out. And so we could spotlight, we can help drive traffic to sellers.
Yeah.
And if sellers are satisfying their customers, what we hear is there's loyalty that happens there, right? And so they actually bookmark your page and come back to it. And so look for those sales. You'll find good deals, and you can build out some of the staple items that you might not need the highest quality on, but that you want to be able to listen to through those moments, and that'll help with the wallet.
Absolutely.
As well.
No, I preach it all the time. I'm like, buy the best version that you can afford right now, and then just have that be that version that you have in your collection until you can upgrade later, because you will. Like, there will always be a better version. There will always be another one that's coming out, or something that you find that's even older.
And from sellers, like if you get that one record, I'll look for a couple more. They put them all in the same box. The shipping's the same, and yeah, it helps them.
That's a good tip too.
Yeah.
Too, just to always check what sellers have available in their inventory.
Yeah.
Even if the ones you want, but it's a little bit of a rat hole. But
Yeah, everyone does
single
that.
mailer you get about 3 records in there.
Yeah, usually, you get the one you want, and then you can find a couple cheap ones that just to take a chance on, and that's happened many times. Like, wow, I'm really glad I added that $4 record to my order.
How often do you guys buy records?
Yesterday?
Yesterday I bought 4. I'm ordering on Discogs at least once a week.
Yeah.
And
So the CEO of Discogs, to my point about Discogs does not sell records, the CEO buys them on Discogs.
I built it for me.
There you go.
We joke about how we take our bag with us everywhere we go, and I have systems for how to get the records under the seat in front of me. And so every city I go to, I visit a record store, I try and buy at least 1 or 2 things just to support the community. And then on top of that, Discogs, I'm still getting stuff from Vinyl Me Please. They keep putting out great stuff. And then, there's things like Rap Cats that always have some special kind of thing. Egon's always finding these things that are so cool. And so, I've got all these sources all around and pull them in. Nothing wrong.
Just like everyone else. Just scrape it around. It's just like everyone else. Well, man, this has been fascinating. I really appreciate you guys, first of all, making the effort and coming down to the North Texas area to do this. I hope it's the start, and I think it is a start of a really cool relationship where we can continue to do these types of videos to where we, again, pull the curtain back and let people know what's going on at Discogs, how to be a better user, success stories from sellers and from buyers using the platform. That's all the stuff that I really look forward to in the future. So thank you guys again for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Discogs Insider. We'll be back again at some point with a follow-up episode, so keep an eye out for that. As always, my name is G.I. Sanders, and we will see you again next time. Thank you again to Kevin and to Lloyd from Discogs.
Thank you.